Hey everyone, it's super late. I'll regret this tomorrow when I wake up. But it's worth it. Paladin Sylvie is here. I can finally openly talk about her. And she's amazing. So, let's get right to it. Paladin Sylvie is a supporter slash healer in base form and a supporting attacker with super strong buffs in a Brave Shift. The sprite is absolutely marvelous, it's cute, it's amazing. Now, for the base form, we have the Burgeoning and Defense, which is rather interesting. It's 85% general mitigation. Right out of the gate, it repeats itself, so even if you get dispelled, it will reapply on the very next turn. And I like the morale boost. It's sadly just one use per battle, but it's effectively 3 turns of 85% general mitigation, which is super cool. She also has 75% magical and physical mitigation on her kit, on her own. It's sadly you have to cast them each, but it is what it is. It's still very, very strong for a support unit, trust me. And then on the Brave Shift. In the Brave Shift, I included her attacking ability, Clever Paladin Strike. Now, this one, at first glance, it doesn't seem that powerful. Because it's only, in Clash of Wills that is, it appears to be 375x. But she has a few passive abilities that can crank this up even further. And if I'm not totally mistaken, she has a 1590x mod, if Esther's on the party, max morale, etc, etc. But what I do like about this ability is that it's a 25% sword and power. Now 25%, that's kinda we have 30% with Freyevia. But she's a support unit. That's amazing in itself, honestly. She is in to some degree as strong as Berta in terms of Berta is a joke compared to Sylvie in terms of supporting abilities, but Berta does more damage and has that 30% in parallel to, what was it, 35%? I don't remember, to spears. So yeah, I mean, Sylvie's still awesome in that regard. And the 25% sword and pearl on her kit is just the icing on the cake. Alright, now because Sylvie's abilities, you might have noticed if you checked her wiki page, especially on the right hand side, Marianne's Blessing Lightning, she also has the same for Earth. It's just a bunch of text, right? So let's get this started with the right hand side. I know usually you want to read from left to right, but the real deal is on the right hand side, and that is Marianne's Blessing Lightning 1. She also has the same for Earth, like I mentioned. And what it does, it removes all your imbues. It imbues, in this case, Lightning or Earth for the other ability. And it starts off at 50% undispellable, take note, 50% amp to Lightning / Earth on the other ability, physical and magical. Autocast, second turn, you have a 75% lightning amp, and it also re-imbues yet again should you be dispelled, for example, which doesn't matter honestly because it's only one turn anyway, but whatever. And on turn 3, meaning on the second autocast, you have a whopping 100% party amplification to lightning / earth on the other ability. Now, just to get into perspective, the first unit to have a 100% amplification buff is going to be either Ashura Leftia, if I'm not totally mistaken, or upgraded Sage of Thunder Sakura. And those units have 100% amps to one unit. Sylvie has it to everybody. Granted, it's just one turn, but in formats such as classic Clash of Wills, I'm saying classic because the current Clash of Wills is vastly different, but for Clash of Wills usually, and every Dark Visions, this is more than enough. What counts in Dark Visions especially is that one turn where you burst with the highest available modifiers, amps, etc. And for that matter, lightning is your go-to element now. Or earth, for that matter. But lightning is technically better, so to say. So that ability, I don't know, that alone makes Sylvie a 10 out of 10, honestly. But it gets better. So what's not on the sheet? There is plenty of things not on the sheet that I should be mentioning, honestly. But as it is, I don't want to bloat this video up. I could talk for an hour straight on Sylvie. So she also has insect, demon, and stone killers, 150% to the party, and 250% on a single unit. And that is what I was talking about earlier. Future units from JP, they have this feature, 100x% to 100 something percent to everybody, and 250 to a single unit. Sylvie has that too. Sylvie also has 75% racial mitigations to these types, so that's awesome as well. Now on the left hand side, let's get talking about that now. You also see the other two imbues she has. So sadly, that's the only real downside of Sylvie, is that her imbues are tied to cooldowns. Now granted, this is permanent basically, unless you get dispelled. Dispelling Sylvie's imbues is kind of sad face, because then she's, in a worst case scenario, or the party is going to sit 4 turns without an imbue. But I guess you know when to use this ability. But anyway, it's a 5-turn Earth or Lightning Imperil, 120%. It's fine, she's support. But it's also a 150 Earth resistance / Lightning resistance buff, which is already pretty strong. 5 turns imbue and 45% amp. Good stuff, but standard stuff, especially the amp side of things. So again, the real deal being 2 uses per battle on Marianne's Blessing, that's the icing. Now what I do like is the middle ability, the Defender of the Adorable. That is what her auto attack becomes. Now, if you watch Sinsar's live stream yesterday for the current Clash boss, this ability is so overpowered because you can't counterattack this. So for a fight such as what's its name, Death Machine, for example, this will counterattack before your turn starts, meaning your party is alive on the very next turn. So, and there's plenty of uses for this to be super overpowered. I mean, the restore MP HP, yeah, that's great, but if, for example, on this very boss, it has zombie for one phase, so that's kind of oof. But in a general case, this is rather strong, and if you can have a cast this multiple times, this is amazing, because it also heals MP and HP by 20% to all allies, meaning her healing capabilities are technically very strong, but in reality, they are not, because she shouldn't get hit. That's the job your tank is supposed to do. So chances are, unless there's uncoverable stuff, that healing proc is usually not going to proc at all. And then I also included her EX2 and EX plus 3 abilities, or unlocks, because it's rather high and explains why, for example, the Vision card of hers only has 300 static defense and spirit. We'll get to that in a minute. This one, the X2 ability, which also fills her, which fills her LB to full, is also 200 defense and spirit static. The X plus 3 is, passive is 500 static defense, spirit, and 2k HP. So that's nice. So yeah, the kit of Sylvie is super massive. So you're gonna have a few minutes to read this through, and it's also very, very complex. Like, not only does she herself benefit from having Wilk and Sylvie on the party for that Paladin strike I showed you earlier, but it also works the other way around. So if Sylvie's on the party, for Esther gains a flat out 100x LB modifier gain, which is absolutely bonkers, honestly. And you will see this later in this review, what it actually also entails. But that's just a sneak peek. So let's check out the limit burst. and I'm seeing that I have to zoom in on the right hand side. But let's check out the left hand side, the standard base form limit burst. That's just your healing limit burst, 100% all element resistant, which is already pretty good, especially for things such as dark visions. Honestly. Barrier, 350 stat buff, yada yada yada, 250 LB buff. It's really good, honestly, already. That's already really good for a supporting LB. I'm sad it's not 300% LB buff, but I guess you can't have everything. Now let's check out the Brave Shift limit burst. It's ridiculous. So it starts off at 400% stats. Yeah, sadly not 300% LB buff. Gumi, if you're going all the way, go all the way. But the real deal is the next thing. So Sylvie's LB buffs LB modifiers. She's the first unit to do so. It's an interesting mechanic, and it's an overpowered mechanic too, especially in Clash of Worlds, because what it does is basically it increases non-morale scaling units, and that includes Wilk. No, it does not include. No, it does include Wilk's Brave Shifted LB, because that one is not morale scaling. So for everybody that does not have morale scaling, it's a 20x LB. Now this doesn't sound like much on paper. Trust me, it will make a difference. It helps units such as Knights of Grandchild to deal more damage, or Hero Die. It does help too, but clearly this is meant for Clash of Worlds. And the Clash of Worlds modifier, what it really does is at the bottom. So it's a 10x modifier increase for abilities that have morale scaling. So Esther's LB does not gain 20x increase in Dark Visions, for example, because it now has morale-based scaling as well. You have to use the 10x to calculate her damage. It's kind of sad, but on the other hand, Esther's buffs are so massive, getting a 10x increase is fine. Sky also obviously benefits from this, because one, the first hit of hers takes the 60x and the other one the 10x, or 30x. So that's it's kind of funny, honestly, but it's also amazing. So Sky gets to live another day thanks to Sylvie. All right, let's move on to the TMR, STMR, and Vision card. The TMR is an ability. It's kind of honestly, 30% defense spirit when you are wearing a light or heavy shield, and 50% true single wield defense and spirit, true single wield being with or without a shield. It doesn't matter, you will always get that equipment, spirit or defense. The Super Trust Master, one-handed sword, standard sword variants at 1.05 to 1.25, 500 static or 500 HP and 200 defense and spirit. The passive side, 30% lightning or light resistance and 15% basically the rest. And she herself and the original 7-star Sylvie gain 1000 static defense and spirit, which is strong, and it probably, I haven't done the math honestly, outperforms a true double hand build, but I haven't mathed, so I could be wrong on this. Don't pin this on me. And one of the things, or one of the issues I see with this weapon is that it's single-handed. I'd much rather be this two-handed, because if we are wearing a shield, the sword in peril of hers gets halved, so always keep that in mind. But the Super Trust Master, and I find this interesting, it unlocks an ability for everybody that wears this weapon, and that's not so fast, and it removes attack and magic buffs to one enemy. But this could be, and it is somewhat important for the current Clash of Worlds fight, but it is, all in all, for if JP trials were ever really hard in terms of the damage that comes, or that your party takes, this could be very useful. So there's a high potential for this to be very, very useful in the near future. And I can already foresee Clash bosses with undispellable attack and magic buffs, because this item exists, and you will always bring Sylvie to the party. And then there's the super cute Vision card of hers with 115 spirit Level 4 is 30% fire, ice, water, dark, wind resistance, and 50% lightning, earth, light. The level 7 passive is super interesting. It is 25 morale per turn, plus another 25 morale per unit that is not KO'd. Meaning in Clash of Wilds and a few other instances of Clash or morale battles that we have. There's the Wilk fight, for example, and there's going to be the Morgana fight soon. This is where this is going to shine, and it's a 175 total morale gain per turn. It stacks with itself, so if a second unit has this, it does proc again. I think I tested this, unless it was some other proc. And Wilk has a similar vision card effect. And both of them, so the Wilk vision card and this one, they do work separately. So Wilk's vision card works, this works, and you can gain a lot of morale through that. And lastly, the level 10 passive, 300 static defense and spirit for FFBE units only. So verdict on this, it's a good TMR for tanks, but nothing too special. And I do personally like the STMR. It may not look super appealing at first, but I feel like it's going to have its niches. And the vision card as well is rather niche, but with very, very good passives for Clash of Wilds. It's a perfect example of a very, very innovative supporter card, which I do personally like. Well, the 4 and 10 passives are rather but the level 7 passive makes this rather unique, and I like these very unique cards. Alright, let's talk damage. Now, Sylvie doesn't deal much damage. She can help out with damage, but that's not what's the case here. We are checking out the Best Friends Forever combination of Esther plus Sylvie here. And this is what I meant. Like, the top ability, Magnetic Force, is the passive of Esther, which got buffed today or yesterday. And this one is auto-casted every single turn while Sylvie is alive, which she should always be. And what it does is, like I mentioned earlier, a flatline 100%, 100x LB modifier boost. If you are in a morale scenario battle, this goes up to 130x increase for Esther. And let's not forget what Sylvie does. That's at the bottom. That's a 10x modifier increase. Meaning Esther, outside Clash of Wilds, now sports a 485x modifier. The highest so far in the game for physical DPS. Outside Clash of Wilds, obviously. She now is higher than Knights of Grandchild, who are sitting at 470x with Sylvie on the team. And funnily enough, that Esther, with just her Dark Visions mod, is always almost on par with Sky, who's also using Sylvie's buff, just for that matter. She's at 855 and she barely is above Esther without Clash scaling. And that's just basically the 2000 attack difference between Esther and Sky. So Sky really needs an intrinsic ability for 2000 or so static attack, and she needs it stat. And then there's Esther with her Clash scaling. It's 710x in Clash of Wilds, and as you can see, she basically outdamages everything. I haven't done, as you can see, the let me just see the Wilk damage report yet, but I can tell you that Esther outdamages Sky, and that is before the 100% amp, but the 100% amp would also apply to Sky. But just from this calculation, Esther is 38% more damage than Sky. That's something to keep in mind. It's ridiculous. So Sylvie's impact on the damage meter is extreme. And again, we are talking without 100% amps here. All these calculations that you see is with self amps only, meaning Esther's 60% self amp here instead of 100%. So yeah, let's get to the verdict, I guess, because this speaks for itself, honestly. So yeah, like I mentioned, Sylvie is a 10 out of 10. If you think that Sylvie is not a 10 out of 10, you're just, I don't know, you're crazy. There's no unit anymore that... I don't know, I said this with Roberta, that it's almost impossible to make a unit that is better than her, and here we are. Sylvie it is. I don't know. She's a real premium unit without being premium. She defines a whole new supporting meta tier. And if you skip Sylvie, I don't know what to tell you. It's a very unintelligent move. Let's put it that way. Skipping Sylvie is the greatest mistake you will ever make in this game. Hands down. And the reasons are 100% party amp is just too crazy for the entire party. The LB burst, the limit burst modifier increases. They're super unique. There's, I believe, no other unit on a grand scale like this for all party members who can do this. So take it for what you will. And there's also the amazing party support. She can deal chip damage. And the best skills are not locked to Clash, which is a plus, sadly, these days. Kaito, take note. And yeah, there's just few bad things, honestly. And they are both minor, but I felt like I should mention them. Abuse not being on demand and rather on cooldowns. I didn't deduct a point for this because they are self-sufficient. And it shouldn't matter all too much because, especially with the Grandes, it's self-recasting. So whatever happens, it's fine. But it can be an issue for Clash of Wills if a fight goes to turn 20, such as the current one. And yeah, the healing power of hers is a bit lacking, honestly. Even though she has that strong counter attack, I feel like she shouldn't be countering. So her healing power is lacking. But at the end of the day, still a 10 out of 10. Amazing unit, and that's not just because I like Sylvie, it's facts. If I'm really interested to see if anyone has the mental gymnastics to argue that she's not a 10 out of 10. I'd love to see the mental gymnastic you have to go through to argue that she's not a 10. I'm really curious to see that reasoning. But until then, thank you all for watching. I go to bed. I've been awake for... What time is it even? Let's check. It's probably 1 a.m. Yep, it's 1 a.m. So I've been awake for... I woke up at 6 a.m. today. So that's 19 hours. Oh, jeez. Is it actually? I can't count anymore. Yeah, I've been awake for 19 hours, so... Thank you all for watching. See you tomorrow for the work review. And Cincor is going to be on the work review too. Bye. Bye.